Hello everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got new details on a major snowstorm and ice storm coming with a full breakdown and analysis ahead. Welcome back everyone. We got an important update today and a lot to cover, so go ahead and take a pause right now and go ahead and hit the like button to help the YouTube algorithm. And if you hadn't subscribed to my channel already, it's easy to do so. You just have to click the subscribe button and click the notification bell to get all my daily updates. I got a full breakdown ahead. And it's important to share this video as well to get this out as many as people as possible to warn them of the potential that's coming. So let's kind of break this down and take a look at the overall water transport index this morning. We've got a 997 millibar low pressure out off here off the Pacific coast. This is going to be the culprit in the beginning stages of what's to come that looks to be a fairly significant snowstorm and ice storm in the days ahead. So it's got all this moisture pumping in the atmospheric river up here into places into British Columbia and Washington this morning on Wednesday, January the 12th. That's going to be traversing across into Montana. Then it's going to start taking a nosedive around the Dakotas area, and that's going to be the beginning stages of our snowstorm. So let's take a look at the overall setup this morning, where they've got flash flood watches and a slight risk for excessive rainfall in and around the Washington, the Seattle area. That'll eventually get into portions of Portland later on this afternoon. But those flash flood watches continue, and that system traverses across into Montana, and you can already see they're already kind of warning people of some snow that's going to be on the way for parts of the Dakotas. And let's go over the details with that right now. So let's kind of break this down as we go into Thursday. There's that setup coming in off the Pacific Northwest. More rain into places like into Washington, going into Oregon, right along the coast here. There's this heavier snow to the north into British Columbia. That's taking a beeline. Right now, it's got what they call northwest flow. It's got out ahead of it. It's got that flow to be coming off the lake waters here. That's why they're having all that significant lake effect snows out here, up here in this region. And some of these areas have picked up several feet of snow with that convective banding and training banding that's setting up in those areas. But as we get into that Thursday time frame with that the winds, you can really kind of see of what's to come with this significant system that's going to be pushing inland into places into Washington. These are the winds that kind of shows you where the northwest flow, and it's already going to be picking up some winds even by Thursday, and that's the trajectory of our beginning stages of our snowstorm. So because by the time we get into that Friday afternoon time frame, this is about noontime on January the 14th on Friday, we can start to see that developing snowstorm going to be breaking out into places in the Dakotas, North Dakota, getting into portions of Minnesota, eventually swinging down into Iowa. You can see the little bars here. The closer they are, those are those isobars. So the closer they are, that's the culprit of some little bit higher wind gusts that are going to be impacting that area during that time frame. And that red line here, that is your freezing line. So basically anything to the north, that's why there's snow to the north of that line, because it's cold enough to snow, right? So as we move through and take a look at the overall NAM 3K, we're still within that parameter, within 60 hours out. It's picking up on the NAM. So this is more of a short range model, and I'll use different guidance, going forward throughout this video to kind of give you a true depiction of what's really happening. So yes, by the time we get into that 9 o'clock in the morning time frame on Friday, we should start to see some heavier snows. There's your legend down here at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You've got the blues indicating your snows. Your darker blues are your little bit heavier snows. So that should be breaking out into parts of the Dakotas, getting into portions of Iowa. And yes, that is freezing rain on the south side into portions of Nebraska here, as we get into the day on Friday. So as we move through and get onto Saturday morning, that's when I think it really starts to tighten up Friday night into Saturday morning, look at the isobars now. It really starts to tighten up right around southeastern South Dakota here into a good chunk of central and eastern parts of Nebraska into Iowa. There's the convective banding in around northern Missouri here with some heavier snow. We've got rain on the south side as this continues to push southward. So let's take a look at some of the wind gusts that we could be looking at, because this is almost, these are overall wind gusts by the time we get into that Friday night, Saturday morning time frame of a good swath of 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts in this area. So that I wouldn't not be surprised. Some of these areas could actually be on the cusp of some blizzard warnings taking effect as we get closer with this event. They don't usually issue those until at least 24 to 48 hours out. And this is through Friday night, Saturday morning, right? So as we get into that time frame, yeah, I do expect some heavier wind gusts getting into southern South Dakota here, getting into portions of Nebraska with those higher wind gusts of 40 to 50, upwards to 55 miles an hour at times. So as this continues to push southward, by the time we get into that Saturday morning on the NAM, kind of shows the same thing, right? We got some heavier snows breaking out into central and northern Missouri. That gets into portions of Kansas, northern parts of Oklahoma here. On the south side, we got rain, and then you're starting to see that mix on the southern portions of Missouri with some freezing rain and the ice developing. And this is the morning hours. That's about 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. So now we can actually fine tune this particular setup, because we're within, about 3, potentially 4 days out of this storm in at least our Midwestern states. We can little fine tune some of these totals. So let's kind of break this down. I'm looking at places like Minot, could be looking about 7 inches of snowfall from this particular system. Bismarck, North Dakota, you're talking about 2.5 inches. You get into Grand Forks, you're talking about 2.5 inches as well. West Fargo, 5 inches. Aberdeen, about 8 inches. I could just kind of go through some of these totals here, as we continue to expand and go into places like Sioux Falls, about 8 inches of snowfall. And then as we traverse across into portions of Nebraska, that's about Omaha, right around 7 to 8 inches with this particular system. We swing over to Minnesota here. We've got, places into Minneapolis, right about 2 inches. So a little bit higher amounts as you swing further west. And swing south as we go into places like Iowa, where they've been about 8 inches below average so far in Des Moines. I think you totally wipe that out. By the time we get into that Saturday time frame, we could be looking at 8-9 inches in places like Des Moines, Iowa. So I think all your snowfall deficit is going to be wiped out, and you're going to be seeing average snowfall by the time we get into that Saturday time frame with this storm system continue to push further south. But yeah, so that kind of gives you an idea of some of the snowfalls with that first particular system as it continues to version across. You get into portions of like I mentioned, Iowa on the southern side, 5 to 6 inches. Now as it swings further south, we can't be as fine-tuned because it's obviously a little bit later in the period, so you're kind of beyond 4 days. So if we take a look at the icon, notice I'm using different models, so I've kind of really analyzed this data pretty fully this morning, and I'm giving you a full breakdown. I think a realistic view of what's to come. So we're on Saturday afternoon, we're looking at the pivot point, and the pivot point was where this low pressure starts to dive south and it pivots further east. But we've seen a noticeable trend of it, what they call back building, backing off a little bit further to the west as some of that cold air continues to press, right? So yes, we could be looking at some heavier snows, maybe start breaking out in northern Arkansas, and that low pressure system might get as far as eastern Oklahoma and might even get as far as northeastern Texas. So we'll have to watch the trend, but yes, I think that's where it stops, and then it'll take a beeline further east and a little bit southeast. So yes, as we get into that Saturday afternoon time frame, we've got the heavier snow to the north, a low pressure to the south side. We got rain to the south side. where you get that warmer air aloft, that's where we're going to be seeing some of that transfer over to some of that icy mix. And we could be looking at more moderate snows as we get into that central Missouri and northern Missouri area. And then as we get into that Sunday, overnight time frame, yes, we could be looking at transferring to snow in northeastern Arkansas, going into portions of Tennessee here, with rain on the south side, and start to get an icy mix start to set up. Here's the latest at GFS. That was the European, so I was showing you kind of both sides. The GFS actually has it a little bit further north, so it has the system further north with the low pressure on the south side, with this good swath of freezing rain and icy just mess in these areas, into portions of northern Tennessee as you get into Kentucky, with that snow on the backside with that low pressure snowing into southern Missouri, because it puts it just again a little bit further north. Let's go back to the European. As the European gets off the coast here, I think that's when we have a pretty significant ice storm start to break out in portions of, especially in the Carolinas, as you get into North Carolina, potentially northern Georgia here. The snow line could get as far south as into Atlanta. Again, you can't get really too detailed this far out. We're talking, this is Sunday afternoon of the overall exact track at this point. So I'm just giving you a best assessment at this point of the overall guidance and track as we move forward. But yes, I do feel as this makes a turn, we could be looking at a significant ice storm really start to break out into southern, northern South Carolina, especially into North Carolina. There's the ice. I mean, the orange is your sleet. And then there's the snow to the north. Like I mentioned, the GFS is a little bit further north than the current European model track. So that makes all the difference in the world of the overall amounts and the overall track with this system. So as this continues moving across, there's the 700 millibar temperatures, right? We've got 12C. This is about 7,500 to 10,000 feet up in the atmosphere. Got plenty of cold air, upper air dynamics with that cold air continuing to press. We've got a negative NAO, so that's really slowing down this system. We talked about the 50-50 low yesterday, and that's what's going to keep this inland. In fact, it actually pushes it a little bit more further inland than what was showing yesterday. So it's all about timing and trajectory with these snow tracks. And yes, we're dependent on the exact track. It could be a significant difference in totals of what's to come, especially, as we get into the weekend. But all indications, this takes pretty much a beeline up the Appalachian Trail. I know a lot of people hike this trail, right? This goes over 1,000 or 2,000 miles, right? So if you got anybody out there that that is on the trail currently, they need to be aware of this storm, of these potential dangers of a significant ice storm and a significant major snowstorm that's on the table, and they do not want to be caught out in this. So this is by this weekend, so you need to let them know of this is what's to come right along the Appalachian Trail, because it's going to be really nasty by the time we get into the weekend time frame going into Monday. And they need to be well aware of this potential dangers and potentially get a hotel room and ride this thing out and go back on the trail once this thing passes. So as we get into that Monday time frame, I think that's when it really starts to amplify and really starts to crank up as it pulls in the moisture here into the ocean here. And look at these isobars. I mean, it really starts to tighten up. I think it really starts to get cranking as we get into Virginia, portions of West Virginia, goes into PA, and then eventually, it goes up the coast with a Miller Type A setup snowstorm. I mean, look at the water vapor transport index. This is the same index I showed you at the beginning of the video that's coming in with the atmospheric river off the northwest, Pacific Northwest. Now we're talking about it's almost off the chart. In fact, it is off the chart at 1509, right? So this is an extremely heavy amount of precipitation that's pulling and wrapping and then dumping inland. So we could be looking at some fairly significant totals as we get into that Monday time frame. Again, we can't zoom in exactly and fine tune the details. We'll go over some of the ensemble members, and that's the best guidance we can use at this far out to kind of give you but yes, this definitely has the potential to be a significant event as we move into that Monday time frame, because we've got a 983 millibar low pressure hanging off the coast with an extreme amount of water vapor pumping inland, wrapping around, pulling in that cold air from the north. Here's the darker blues. We could be looking at 1, 2, easily 3 to 3 inch per hour snowfall rates at times, potentially, as we get into the daytime or going into the morning hours on Monday. Up here into the mid-Atlantic, getting into the Northeast, this continues to amplify with these very tight winds, these very tight isobars really tightening up. Now we're down to a 978 millibar low pressure. Look at that extreme on the backside with these very convective snowfall rates coming in off the backside, pulling in that some of that moisture. So yes, this has a potential for a significant event, and it just continues to amplify. We're down to a 973 millibar low pressure. There's on the backside. That's not till Tuesday. So we're talking, this is Wednesday. So this is 6 days out before we can actually say goodbye to this system. So right now, it's off the Pacific Northwest coast and pretty much offshore right now, off the West Coast. So you can't exactly be that fine-tuned in detail of exactly the exact placement and the snowfall amounts once it gets into this region, because that won't be until, Saturday, Sunday, going into Monday, and then it winds down on Tuesday. So we will definitely be fine-tuning this system in the days ahead. But right now, look at the European of the wind gusts. It's coming in over all that time frame. It really starts to crank up as we get into the southeast. As it rides up the coast, we've got that 30 to 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gust. Right along the coast, it pushes those heavier wind gusts. The European has some of the higher wind gusts, or at least the hurricane force wind gust offshore. But the GFS actually, again, has it a little bit further inland, and this pushes it well inland and has numerous 50, 60, upwards to 70 mile per hour wind gusts. This is an all-out blizzard, guys, if this were to take place in this area coming into New England, into the mid-Atlantic states, into the Northeast on Monday, winding down on Tuesday. And then here's the latest European ensembles. This is the ensembles. Right now, I'm not really going to, I'll show you the operation, I'll show you the difference. But this is a summary of all the European operational models. This is what you would particularly use this far out to kind of give you a true estimate of what might lie ahead. Yes, some of these totals could be a lot higher than what I'm showing you, but right now, this is a true assessment with a couple inches coming off into Missouri, 1 or 2 inches into northern Arkansas. We could be looking at some lighter snows into northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama. I think maybe Atlanta gets some snow, a little bit at least, probably more likely freezing rain, but then heavier amounts as you go up the Appalachian Trail and going up into the mid-Atlantic. And I think it really starts to get cranking as you get into the Northeast, and there's the operational, right? So obviously at this point, it's a little bit more significant. But right now, the ensemble member guidance is what you would use kind of this far out. And there's the ice. So I'm really concerned about a dangerous ice setup, especially as you get into northern portions of Georgia here into the Carolinas. And this could be fairly significant. Again, we'll fine tune this again with some dusting of ice into this part, but really starts to amplify as you get into the Carolinas. And then there's the GFS ensembles. This is your ensembles. It puts it a little bit further north. The operational is a lot more bullish than this, but this is the ensemble member guidance at this point. Kind of shows you the trajectory of the track of this potential significant snowstorm that's on the table. And there's the ice. Again, the track is a little bit further north, so it puts the ice a little bit further north. But again, we've got numerous areas, a good chunk of real estate with a fairly significant ice and dangerous travel conditions as you get into that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and it doesn't wind down until Tuesday morning. So I will continue to fine tune this this significant storm in the days ahead. Please share this video if you hadn't already, and hit the subscribe button as well. And catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.